Hello, welcome into the PHNX Rising Podcast. I'm Owen Evans. Today, Ryan Sykora alongside me. It's not Max, it's not Jake, it's Ryan.
I'm back, guys. Again. Like I said the last time, I'm just a call up away. Owen decides he wants to use me this week, so I'm here.
He is. He's here in the studio. We're in the pink Jacksonville Armada kit.
Shout out, not USL gang. Instead is...
former NASL.
Yes.
And not only that, there's a lot to talk about. I'm joining MLS Next Pro.
Yes. They will. I actually think they will be there, but I don't know.
We'll have to see. We've got a lot to talk about today, though. We're going to talk a little bit about Rising, what we're expecting to see out of them, and how we think things are going to piece together ahead of this upcoming game. We're going to have a bit of talk about Oakland. There was, of course, some big news about Oakland Roots today with the trade they made with Hartford Athletic. And then we'll have a look at some of the other games coming up this weekend and maybe talk about another club that's wearing pink and share some controversial opinions on that. Who knows?
Owen's probably not happy.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where things go with that. But let's start, though, by talking about Phoenix Rising. Look, I don't want to dwell too much on that last game, but since we were last on air on Tuesday, we have had the chance to hear from Rising coach Juan Guerra, and we've managed to hear what he had to say on reflection about that game in Pittsburgh. Let's kick things off by having a listen to that.
I was happy with many phases of the game. I think being on the sideline over there and being in Pittsburgh 5 times prior to that game, a few times as a player and twice as a coach, and understanding what playing in Pittsburgh is on that field versus those teams that Bob assembles, that they're very comfortable making you uncomfortable, and even when you try to make them uncomfortable, they're fine. I was happy with many phases of the game that we did, and I actually spoke to Owain after the game, and I told him that I was happy with a lot of things we did, but watching the game after, and putting emotions to the side and being more logical, I think we did a lot of good things up to the final third. In the final third, we were okay because we were good 3-4 times. We cannot be good 3-4 times. We have to be good 10, 12, 15 times on the final third. But again, sometimes when you're on the sideline and you have those emotions and you're feeling like you're controlling a game in Pittsburgh and you're being able to pin them back and make them defend, and you look to the side and you see Bob screaming and you see how uncomfortable Bob is, and then Bob talks to me after the game and he says what he said to me. Sometimes you leave with a feeling that you were better when you were not. We were good all the way into the final third. In the final third, we had to be much better, and this is what we've been working all week, is about that change of mentality.
I'm not necessarily surprised, if I'm honest, hearing the change in tone slightly there from what was originally said post-game to what was said on reflection several days later. Are you surprised by it, really?
No, so you were there. You got the reaction hand on first hand. We were back at home here watching the game, doing the radio broadcast for Rising, and we saw that reaction. We saw that tweet that you put out, and we were very surprised, Peyton Gallagher and I. We did not understand how he could have been very happy with that game. So I think it's a good thing, in all honesty, that he went back. There was the change of tone and the understanding that as good as some of the phases in the game were, like he said, they lack the most important phase in this entire thing, which is the attacking third, find a way to score goals, and the understanding of that can only be better for them. He doesn't want to be complacent. I think he showed that.
It's something that just keeps coming up, though, doesn't it? The final third is always... It feels like it's the topic we say every week. Every week. Now, I will say here, we've actually got a few things in. D. Gully, much better take, far less delusional, he says in response to the one thing. Very Rick answer, Michael says. Not sure if he's talking about the revised one or the original one. I didn't think that the revised one necessarily was. Rick's revised answers tended to come in the opposite direction. He got better over time. Harry as well in the chat. Hello to Harry there from San Antonio. Look, I think that as you kind of break down where it's going wrong now, how much longer do you think it's going to take Rising to really click in that final third?
So Juan Gerra has talked a lot about how 25 games is sort of the barometer for this team in terms of where he really wants to see them fully hit their potential. I think it could be a little quicker than that for them to start finding goals, and scoring goals is the hardest thing to do in this sport. You play on a massive field with large goals for 90 minutes and you can only score 1 or 2 goals a game at most. It's impossible to score goals. And even the best teams in the early days of their productivity, Manchester City in the early days of Pep, stuff like that, struggle to score goals. It's always been the most challenging thing for any coach to put together. I think like they should start to do something at some point. They've gotten some contributions from Arteaga. They've gotten some from Trejo. Varela played pretty well in his cameo against Pittsburgh. We'll get into that, I'm sure, at some point later on. Armenakas coming in is a good add for chance creation. They're putting the pieces together to go into the system that should mean they create more. So I don't think they're too far away, but at the same time, that's what's crazy about this sport is you can be not too far away, but at the same time be acres and miles and a billion pieces of places away.
Yeah, I mean, Armenakas, that's the question, really. As we talk about Armenakas, we talk about Panos, what are we expecting him to bring in here, really, to this team?
Chance creation. And that was what he said. That was what he was very, very high on himself. He thought he was brought in to create chances, to do the work. He felt like he was going to have a more advanced role in this Rising system. He talked about how at Loudon, he was very defensive, not necessarily in terms of he was a defender, but he was dropping into deeper pockets in the field. He expects very much to be further up in this Rising setup where his chance creation numbers, which are already pretty high in terms of where they rank in the USL this year, his expected assists, big chances created, stuff like that, he expects it to be even greater in a tighter packed team and in a system that's a little more rigid than his role was in Loudon. But his job is to create the chances for the Trejos, the Arteagas, even the Varelas, and in some ways, I guess, Eddie Manjoma as well. But those are the guys that are going to benefit from Armenakas' entry into the team because he's just a pure creator. He's a number 10. When he gets on the ball, he's looking to feed you in and find a way to get you a goal.
Yeah, he's definitely that kind of a player. I mean, you've seen him with Loudon where he was creating chances, not necessarily chances that turned into anything all the time, but again, that's with a Loudon United side that you'd say, broadly speaking, is not as strong as Phoenix Rising. And so
you'd like to think.
You'd like to think. I mean, the question now becomes then, what are we going to see this weekend? What are we going to see in terms of just how are they going to come out and line up? You're looking at things. I mean, we've said all along, right? You can't now have Arteaga, Trejo, Fede, Panos out there. The question is, who's he likely going to drop? I'm intrigued what the chat think about that one. Who's going to make way? How are things going to balance out? Of course, Carlos Harvey as well. We've even seen him play in a more advanced role in some of these games.
Yeah.
And so if you add him into the mixer again, yes, he can play fit deeper down. But it's just not... There's just so much competition now. And especially even when Emi Cuejo comes back, which he's still only in half training at the moment, but he's started to make that kind of progress back towards integration back into the squad. And the hope is that maybe it's next week. I mean, we've heard that a few times, so take it with a little bit of pinch of salt, but I'm sure it's only a few weeks ago now if he's back in half training.
And it's a good problem to have. I mean, like when you've got all this different talent, you've got to find a way to obviously piece it together. I think at times we've seen Varela be the short end of the stick on that, not getting as many minutes as the Trejos and the Arteagas of the world. And that has caused, I think it's, in all honesty, you're able to say a little bit of frustration within the player because that's expected when you're not playing and you've been brought in to do what Fede has been brought in to do here. But I think where you see the front three fit in is Armenakas is going to be in this team. He's an acquisition that's a chance creator. He fits perfectly into one of those two number 10 roles. Varela makes sense and always has in this other role, but he's been competing with Trejo. And Arteaga, who's the leading scorer on the team, he's taking chances here and there. He's doing all the dirty work, all the hard stuff that a striker needs to do. The curious one here is like you have two true number 10s that fit the roles they're asked to play perfectly. You have Trejo, who's somewhat of a tweener, can play out wide, can play as a 10, can play as a 9, did play as a 9 for Vegas last year. And you have Arteaga, who's a 9. So when you have two true number 10s in your front three and you're trying to piece together how it is, those guys go there. Then your choice is Trejo or is it Arteaga? And I think the answer, in my eyes at least, would be pretty obvious. As much as Arteaga does for this team and works for this team and has scored this year, you play Danny Trejo as the 9. He's the best player in this team in one-on-one scenarios. You have an opportunity with that front three of Trejo, with Armenakas, with Varela to have a lot of dribblers, a lot of creators, a lot of versatility in the attacking third, some rotation. It's a really fun group. That's what I'd hope to see against Roots on Saturday. As good as Arteaga's been, I think Trejo has to be in the team. I think Varela, when he's on, has to be in the team. And Armenakas, you see what you've got in him. He's a true number 10 that fits your spot perfectly.
Yeah, and I mean, there's something actually in the chat. I did see that Rob Ashpole was saying, look, when you don't forget about Gabby Torres as well. Now, We don't know how close he is to coming back. Of course, he was the guy who ultimately was dropped out of the 18 to make space for Panos. Worth noting that was really because he's still kind of in that position at the moment in terms of just coming back from injury. He's not back to full fitness. And so they decided, well, of all the people to drop, it'll end up being him. But yeah, I mean, you add him into the mix. You've got him, you've got Uzo, you've got Manjoma as options out wide. Of course, in addition to even your Darnell Kings and those kind of players as well. And you're giving yourselves a lot of options, especially in terms of pace, in terms of creativity out wide. If you've got that kind of creativity in the middle of the park as well, then hopefully things start to click. Hopefully.
You have, and it's hard to say because this league is so varied and the talent dispersion is so high, but...
Insane, I think, is the word you're looking for. This league is insane.
It's stupid, but there is so much talent in this Rising team. If you put together a fully fit Phoenix squad, I don't think it's far-fetched to say they're the most talented roster in USL. Rios Novos played U20 for the U.S. and Argentina and played MLS minutes. And Lambert, Juan Guerra called him the best center back in the division in the midweek. You've got Fuenmayor, who's played in MLS, has made an Open Cup run. Crutzen, who's been new to the league, new to America, but has stepped in perfectly. He's a great passer of the ball. Harvey Zambrano are a great pivot. That attacking front three we just talked about. And then for my money, it'd be Uzo and Manjoma on the left. You have a lot of talent, and it's a good problem to have when you've got that much talent. And then you've got Quaisho and Gabby and Babacar Jai and Darnell King, your captain, on the bench, and even still Arteaga on the bench. And it's just a lot of really, really good, strong, talented players. Eventually, when you've got that much talent, the winning, in my eyes at least, watching how development and teams are built together, when you've got that many guys, winning's going to come at some point.
It is. You're getting some love in the chat there, actually, Ryan, with Harry saying that he loves the Armada kit. A step up from Max before adding at the end in the kit game.
Yeah, I mean, hey.
It could have just been a step up from Max. He had to just hedge it there a little bit.
I'm not going to make as many queasy jokes as Max. And
queasy?
Yes, queasy, not cheesy.
I was expecting cheesy.
Not
he says
cheesy,
queasy.
They are not the best for the stomach.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll give a shout out as well to the third member of our team here, producer Shane, who, Shane, I believe you found some rare footage of Panos Armenakas.
It's unseen. I found it online, actually.
So, Panos the Wonder Child. Will he be Panos the Wonder Child?
You'd hope. That's why you brought him in. I think he's got enough to where I'd say yes. I mean, the image speaks for itself.
The image speaks for itself. Well, we'll have to see. But if you're looking for miracles, I hear you can take that Circle K gas card that they were handing out at the last home game down to Circle K. You get 10 cents off a gallon there, which those gas prices starting to come back down as well. So, you combine that with that 10 cent, knock on wood, hopefully continues in that direction. But yeah, if you've got that continue to go down, you got those 10 cent gas cards valid through August. Yeah. Head on down to Circle K. You can also there pick up a Polar Pop. Remember, text PHNX to 31310. You're going to buy one, get one free offer on a 32-ounce Polar Pop. So make sure to get yourself nice and hydrated as the summer comes in. Head to circlek.com/store-locator. That's circlek.com/store-locator to find Circle K's near you. Meanwhile, I hear you can pick up a beer at Circle K, but you can also pick it up at the 8th Street pub
for you guys
4
can,
Peaks.
I can't.
He can't, unfortunately. He is not old enough, which the disclaimer for that is coming at the end of this one. So don't worry. You don't need to get too ahead of yourself there. But yes, we had a great time out there when we went. Now, it feels so long ago, the World Cup, doesn't it? But we had a great time out there. And you can still have a great time if you head on down there. Great beers. You can, of course, pick them up as well from your local stores. I mean, we don't have any out at the moment, but, normally I'm very partial to a WOW. Unfortunately, Max, prior to his departure, did not do a good job of stacking up that fridge. Because otherwise I'd been sitting here with a WOW. But nope, he doesn't have any WOWs in there, so disappointing to me. But hey, check them out on social at 4 Peaks Brew or at 4 Peaks Pub to keep up with the latest on Arizona's hometown brewery. Remember, of course, you must be 21 or older to drink 4 Peaks, and please enjoy responsibly. Now,
you got another
Oakland
one?
Roots.
Oh, we're going to talk about
we're talking football
now.
now.
Okay,
yeah, okay, we're getting back to it. Don't you worry.
Survived.
We've had a little break there. Right. Oakland Roots. We'll start, I think, with the main part here, which is there was some breaking news today, actually, with Oakland Roots, and there was a trade. They made a trade with Hartford, sending Edgardo Rito over to Hartford. Oakland getting Yesiel Cedeno in return, as well as an undisclosed fee. So, when you look at that in that kind of perspective, who do you think is the winner out of this trade?
It's tricky to tell because Hartford are a team that are towards the bottom of the table in the East. They're looking for star power. Edgardo Rito certainly is that. He's a guy who's probably a top 10, 15 guy in USL. Oakland so much so tried to ship him off to MLS teams. They didn't get any bites. He wants a top 3 salary in this league. Oakland don't have the financial
Not in the
funding
slightest.
at all to pay for that. And that's out of utter respect for Oakland, what they've been able to do with their roster this year. They just don't have the ability to do that. Hartford makes sense in their 3-4-3 for him to go there, him to fit in. I don't know what they do with Antoine Openo now, who's been one of their best players on the right side this year. Rito slots in perfectly into that wingback role. Cedeno for Oakland, plus a little bit of cash, that's always important, fits perfectly, guys. He's a 10 in a team that doesn't have a lot of 10s. They use Lindo Mfeke. He's really one of their only true 10s out there. He slots in perfectly. They have cover at the right wingback role in their 3-4-3. They play the same formation as Juan Guerra does because that was where Juan was before. It's a little different, a little more defensive than what Rising play it as, but they still have a lot of similarities. But Cedeno slides right into a position of need, and they have cover at the right back spot with Brian Tomakas, who's been playing there.
They do, but he's not necessarily the same level as
He's
Rito.
not Rito going forward, nor is he probably Rito if Rito tried to defend, but Tomakas was playing as the right-sided fullback this season. Rito was playing as a number 10.
Mm-hmm.
He just wasn't a true number 10. So you're offloading a guy that you were playing out of position, who was playing...
And yeah, you've got a guy who's scored in Rito as many goals this season in just a handful of games as he did the entirety of last
He's played well out of position, but he is playing out of position, and that's why Cedeno, to me, makes sense to bring him in. And I believe he doesn't fill an international spot either, which is another important factor.
That is. He's got a green card. He does not occupy an international spot. I will say that comment there on him wanting a top 3 USL kind of salary, that one coming via Jonathan Como of Roots Blog, good guy up there in Oakland. I'm just intrigued looking at it. I think you're right. It fits in something that realistically, when you're looking at this from Oakland's perspective, yes, that's a bigger need for them. However, I do think, look, it's not that Cedeno is not a good player. I just think he's quite young. He's perhaps a good one for the future as well. But I don't know if that's quite the win now kind of move. That's the key thing here. I mean, it's from Oakland's perspective, to me, it's a guy who can definitely contribute to this team, but it feels very much like it's budget-driven, kind of knowing that, look, you want to get something for Rito now while you still can. Because come the end of the year, if he's looking for a contract that's that big, Oakland just aren't going to pay it, and you're going to get nothing for it.
And in some ways, it'd be hard for me to believe Hartford would as well. So, I wonder if you asked me, Rito goes on the market, let's say a week ago, because he didn't play the last match. He wasn't featured. So this has probably been something
right, and the
while.
question marks were coming out at that point. I know that I had someone came up to me in Pittsburgh and said, "Oh, and do you have any idea where Rito's going?" Because they just yanked him out of this matchday squad.
So I think it's been in the works for about a week, right? They probably shopped him off. I mean, if they shopped him off to MLS clubs, who knows how many other USL clubs they were like, "Hey, do you want this wingback? Do you want Rito?" I'm not sure Cedeno and money would have been their first choice. They probably would have liked to get a better number 10 at this current junction than Yesiel Cedeno. But Cedeno's not an awful alternative. It's someone you'd take, I think, comfortably. I think Hartford win the trade for me because they get a win-now player. They get an asset that can help them, that fits their system as they try and climb up the table. But
which is interesting because Hartford aren't really a team in a win-now kind of position right now, are they?
It's a weird one. And that's why I say, hey, I'm sure there were other teams out there that they
But they're currently bottom of the East.
I don't know. I think that there were certainly other teams out there in the USL that they were like, "Hey, do you want this guy?"
And they didn't get the bites, or they didn't get the bites that they wanted.
They took the best deal they could get, which was Yesiel Cedeno, and they were hoping for something better from a bigger team. I'm sure Rito, when he found out he was trying to not get out because he just wanted the money, but I'm trying to say if he wasn't going to get the money there, he was trying to go find a contender. I'm not sure he imagined he'd end up in Hartford, Connecticut.
No, I mean, I've been to Hartford covering Rising last year.
Bit dim.
I'm not sure I'd want to move there.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest.
Bit dim.
It could be much better. There are some. This league is a league of contrasts, is it not? You know, there's some very, very nice cities, and there's some places that you're like, not the fun away days, really. But let's look at the rest of Oakland though, and look at. I think a guy like Darius Formella. I think he's coming into his own this year. He's having a pretty good season.
He's fit in, I think, a little more this year with the way that Noah Delgado plays in this 3-4-3.
Yeah.
It's a little more direct. It's a little more in your face. It's a little less technical passing triangles that you see from Juan Guerra. And Formula, while he can do the Juan Guerra stuff, he is this run at you, try and find a way to make you make a mistake type of player. He's aggressive. And he's benefited, as well as Johnny Rodriguez, from this idea of being a little more direct. You talk about Johnny Rodriguez. Juan talked about this weekend, or this in the midweek on Wednesday. He kind of just, when you give him some space outside the box, he's going to shoot. Like, he's that kind of direct player. And Formula is much of the same in some ways. So they're a lot more direct. They're a lot more functional rather than stylistic, which is what Rising are. They're the stylistic team out of these 3-4-3s. Noah Delgado took what Juan Gerra had last year, where they were trying to build this same style of play. He said, we're going to tweak it a little bit. They back into drop 4 sometimes with Tamakas, and we'll play 4-4-2 in moments, but they try and attack in this 3-4-3, and they are very in your face. They try and press you at moments, but long balls, every time Blanchette, the keeper, gets the ball, it's long, it's dumped. They try and find a way to get it up to Rodriguez and Formula as quick as possible, and those two guys have benefited more than anybody else because of it.
Absolutely, and I think, look, when we spoke about this in midweek, it kind of came up with Juan, and it was like, yeah, they've built on that project. I think that's the key thing here. It's not like they had Juan left and they completely went back to the drawing board about how they were going to do things. They've evolved what they had there. They've
smart.
Whereas I think what we've seen in the transition here in Phoenix from Rick Shantz to the way that Juan wants to play is a much more abrupt kind of transition away from one style of play towards another. And that comes with its issues. I mean, we've seen those issues this season. It's required a huge amount of turnover in terms of the playing staff. It's caused some problems in terms of adjusting to quite how they're going to deal with that in the final third. When you evolve slightly more, maybe it's not that difficult. You don't face those same kind of problems. There's a lot more consistency in there. You know what? We're touching on that. We're touching on that transition between Juan up in Oakland to Noah Delgado. Of course, when Juan left Oakland, that caused some controversy up there. It was not the most friendly of departures necessarily. And I did get the chance to ask Juan about that. It's the first time that he's going to be coming up against his former club on the touchline, because, of course, he wasn't able to be on the touchline the last time these two sides met. So I asked him if he thought there was going to be any of that ill will might still be around going into this game. Here's what he said.
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know how's their feeling over there. I have not been in contact with some of those 5 or 6 guys that made those decisions on the higher part of the organization. To be honest, I'm not interested in knowing how they feel either. I respect the club very much. I respect the supporters. I respect the fan base. I respect all the players and the coaching staff and everyone that knows me. They know exactly how I feel about everything that happened, and I have nothing but love. But all those persons and part of the organization, just 5 or 6 guys don't represent what the whole organization is. So that's how I feel about it.
That was, I mean, look, so Ali says it in the chat, there's so much drama. It was actually, I think, at times last season. The whole thing over like, oh, are they tampering? How's it going? I mean, it just says he looks like he doesn't care. I mean, I don't know. What was your take on that one?
It was one of the feistier answers that Juan has given to any of the questions, and we've seen him defend
in a midweek, yeah.
In a midweek. That's fair.
We see sometimes different things after a game, but then that's a much more emotional time.
Yeah, but like the midweek is his logical, methodical plotting through a press conference. That was like he almost took, not offense to it, but he felt like he needed to get something off, and he needed to say like, hey, this is where I'm at with it. I'm here. Some people are still there, and I don't really have much care for that. And I think that was kind of mattered. And I think you could feel the edge to this week out of that. And that'll be something that I think matters to the players. It'll probably be something that carries over into the team talk pregame, because
there's a couple of former Oakland guys in that Rising team.
Fuenmayor and
Jose Andres Hernandez.
Jose Andres Hernandez.
There we are.
That was a
the local boy, yeah.
Yes, and you can feel that testiness on a Wednesday. I'm sure it'll carry on over to Saturday before the game. You're going to feel an edge to this team, I'd imagine. And it's a lot of reasons because of that kind of answer, is because there is this idea. And it's the first game ever with Oakland and Rising, because he didn't coach the game when Rising went up to San Francisco Bay either, because he was suspended on
He was suspended. He picked up a red card just before. He wasn't too happy about picking up the red card in the game before, but he did miss that game. Then he had to watch from up in the owner's suite when they played down here. So, yeah, it's the first time he's been the head coach when these two sides have met.
Yeah.
So, we'll see. I think you're right. I think there will be some degree of an edge to the game, but I think it's going to be tempered slightly, because I think, as he even says there, it's harder because he's got a point to prove almost. Well, maybe not a point to prove, but it's got an edge about it with him and his relationship maybe with certain individuals. But for the most part, I'm not sure those individuals are
players and coaches.
Yeah.
It's front office guys that it's the suits that Juan was clearly a little bit displeased with.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Look, I'm intrigued as well. We mentioned it about the fact that we got Aleph Wenmayor, we've got Jose Andres Hernandez, who both now are coming up against their former club, potentially. What kind of an edge do you think that adds for them, coming up against a former team, coming up against, players that you've played with up there, coaching staff that you played for?
Yeah, I mean, and Jose Donaciano on the other side,
Indeed.
He probably won't feature. I think he's been dealing with a little bit of an injury over the last couple of weeks. If there's any Jose stands out there, I'm one of them. Please join. I thought he was great.
I thought he was great.
I thought he was great at times. I thought he was good enough to stay, but as a side note, when you have a guy like Fuenmayor, who is someone who is a very clear starter on this team, he adds to something. I think there's an edge on the field of, you have guys, you know what you're doing, you have a chance to understand, hey, what are the runs that Formula and Johnny Rodriguez are going to try and make? You can direct those at, especially for a guy like Fuenmayor, who's at the heart of the defense when he's fit. He's the captain back there. As much as the armband is won by Lambert or somebody else, he's the director of traffic. He's the traffic cop trying to figure out where everybody's going, and that's a guy that's a valued asset. He's a very intelligent player. He understands what the other team has, and I think there's an understanding of these runs, and even if Oakland have tweaked a little bit under Noah Delgado, you understand a little bit of the thought process, maybe a little bit better than anybody else on the pitch that's not in a Roots uniform.
I think that's the first time that I heard a player described as a traffic cop. It's a different kind
Expert
of description
analysis.
right there.
Expert analysis. There you go.
D. Gully in the chat saying Oakland will have an edge. Juan bailed on them. They'll be motivated. I don't know. See, to me, that was true last year. I thought that was true when they came in against... they came into Wild Horse Pass. I think they did, and that's why you saw the celebrations. You saw all of that in Phoenix last year when they won. I mean, there's also some other comments in there about how Gabby posting pictures of him back at training. We said he's back. He's back in training. He's training mostly as normal now.
Yeah.
It's just that he's still that, is he fully fit to go 90 minutes? Probably not at this point. That takes time. But that takes game time even to really progress yourself up to that point. Look, I think one more thing I think on Oakland before we start wrapping this part up. I'm intrigued because this is not Oakland, right, to be in the position that they're in at this stage of the season. Oakland don't do this. Oakland start the season atrociously. Oakland languish outside the playoff places. And that last 2 or 3 months, they just click. And everything goes right and they end up in 7th or 8th. And then they start winning playoff games. Is this sustainable for Oakland, or are they going to drop off? I mean,
I think
we haven't seen a full season yet from them.
And I don't know. I think the difference with this Oakland team a third of the way through is that they have the grit. Like, they're not trying to play any pretty style of football. They're just trying to saying they're playing for results, and they're still playing with some substance. Like, they are.
They're also not playing in Oakland this year.
It's a good point as well. They don't have to deal with whatever that is.
Yeah, there's not the constant transitions and the awkward field by there. They're playing up in CSU East Bay now, down in Hayward.
I think so. I think you're right. And I think that's what matters for me. Is this is an Oakland team that's built on result. Grind it out, get a point, get 3 points, figure it out. I think they've been pretty good at that this year. And obviously, when you're 5th in the West, as talented as the West is, and you can maybe make the argument that Vegas is bottom in terms of the talent pool that they're
and yet Rising lost to Vegas at home.
This game.
This league is insane.
Vegas is the worst team talent-wise in the Western Conference. And then you have a stretch of New Mexico and RGV and Monterey Bay and Oakland where it's like, these are the other 3 or 4 teams that should be in the bottom 4, the teams that don't make the playoffs. And out of all those teams, Oakland's the only one that's up in the top 5. It makes no sense, and it's a credit to what Noah Delgado has done stepping into the job and stepping up.
Indeed, you're right. I'm going to toss it now. Score prediction. Putting you on the spot. Come on.
They didn't tell me they were going to do this.
We do it every time in the final.
I think for me, Rising, I think Armenakas is a good ad. I think he gives them something that is a true number 10, which is something they've lacked, because as much as Varela and Fede can be that role, he wants to be a little bit different. He wants to be a carrier, not a distributor. And I think Armenakas, while he can carry, his primary job, his primary role is to turn and play. I think he adds something there. I think whether it's Trejo or Arteaga up top, or Varela as off the team or whatever, I think they're going to have opportunities there. Manjoma's fit. He fully trained. I think he's been getting better and better every week. I think Uzo's going to be back and fully fit and starting. You've got all this attacking talent. I think Rising find a way to keep a clean sheet and find a way to score a goal and win 1-0.
You're going 1-0.
Yeah.
So the chat here, we got Thomas saying 2-0. D Gully with we better get 3 points.
No prediction.
Michael 2-1. I'm also going 2-1 here. I'm going to go Panos is going to score. Danny Trejo is going to score. 1-0 Trejo, says Banditas blew it in there. Yeah, that people are confident, but the question is it misplaced confidence at this point?
Every time it feels like we as the media and anybody else has been confident, it's been a disaster. And anytime it's like, well, we're walking into this one and it's not going to go well. Well, it's actually been pretty good. So tread carefully.
Yeah, well, those expectations are pretty high, and you can get high with OGs. So here's the cringe, see? All right, the mixed bags, the fruits, the creams. The fruits, watermelon, red apple, peach. They got the creams, blackberries and cream, orange creamsicle, peaches and cream, pink lemonade is coming soon. That one Max is going to have to come back for, apparently. He's cutting short his trip to South America to make sure that he gets back here in time for them dropping the pink lemonade flavor on June 21st. Remember, you can go out, you can find OGs at your local dispensary. You can check them out online at ogsbrands.com. That's OGEEZbrands.com. And on Instagram at ogsbrands. You must be, of course, 21 years or older to purchase. Meanwhile, also a good place if you want to have some fun on an upcoming Tuesday at some point. I'm sure we'll have a Tuesday where we don't have a podcast. So we always head on down to Valley Taproom when that's the case. We go down there, get some good beer. They do have 4 peaks. They got about 30 taps on down there. So a lot of choice, big wine selection, light bar menu there. You can bring food from outside though. And we always have fun on a Tuesday when we don't have the pod because we go down there. They got trivia at 6:30. It's a good time. Last time we went there, we ended up winning the trivia. Max claims credit, of course. He always does for the fact that he seems to think that, he's the one that won it for us. He got about 2 questions of it. But hey, let the man think what he thinks.
Those 2 questions were the difference.
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. But anyway, good time there. They have a lot of different things. Wednesdays, they have 35% off wine bottles. They have live music on Fridays. So there's a lot of reason to head on down to Valley Taproom. Go check them out. They also have a happy hour, noon till 6 during the weeks, which has money off of drafts and wine. And sometimes they get the karaoke going as well on the Saturdays, which I know that one of these days we will get Max out there for karaoke. Don't you worry. It's going to happen. We're going
out there every day.
He will definitely be. We will have a Twitter poll at some point to determine what song Max is going to sing. We will film it. We will post it for you. We will play it during our shows. We will put this everywhere. We will get Max doing karaoke at Valley Taproom. But remember, you can go check them out on Instagram at Valley Taproom, and you can visit them off the 202 and Gilbert. Good time over at Valley Taproom. Right. What else is a good time? It's when you got a weekend coming up at USL action. Good time or a really, really bad time? We'll have to see. Let's have a look at those fixtures.
Always a good time, even if it's a bad time.
Let's have a look at those fixtures coming up tomorrow. Loudoun United FC Tulsa. Good time or bad time? Snooze time. There we go. Especially when you contrast it with San Diego Loyal hosting Sacramento Republic.
Why are San Diego not bad all of a sudden, but just nowhere near what they were out of the gates this year?
Frauds.
Their clubs
are frauds.
They've just slipped. It's like new San Diego announcement came in and they just kind of like stopped caring. They were like, well, this kind of sucks.
How many playoff games they ever won in their history? 0. Yeah.
And Sacramento's good. Watch Sacramento.
Yeah. Sacramento are a pretty good team. I'd expect them to probably get a result there, especially because San Diego have been pretty horrid at home lately.
It's not been fun
really
to watch.
falling apart for them. Meanwhile, in other games, Pittsburgh Riverhounds hosting Charleston Battery. That'll be an interesting one to me. Charleston, I think, is still slipping a bit, especially with the fact that they drew 0-0 in an admittedly heavily weather-affected game yesterday that didn't finish until after midnight on the East Coast.
Shout out Detroit for finding a way to get it done again.
Well, it's Detroit. They're very good defensively. They just don't score for the most part.
And then
that's true. They don't score.
And then when they score, they give up 2.
Yeah. But looking at some of the other games, any others that particularly catch your eye from this weekend?
The big one is Pittsburgh-Charleston because it's the top of the East team. Charleston have just kind of managed to hover around that upper echelon with Ben Pierman this year. It's been really impressive. And then you could argue on the road, day one, right now, that might be one of Rising's better results. Pittsburgh are second in the East. It's a 1 versus 2 out there.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And Pittsburgh are hotter than any team. I think Pittsburgh, it's 10 straight unbeaten in all competitions before they lost to FC Cincinnati. It's 7 straight in the USL Championship, which is their second longest run in like club history. They've been really, really good. Memphis and Lou City is another good one.
That's going to be a really good one because here's the thing. Lou City have, I think, they're just not really clicking, right? This is a team that's been dominant for so many years. They're not quite clicking right now. They're starting to fall a little bit back down. They've dropped, I believe, to 4th. Memphis are in 5th. Memphis has been the form team in a lot of ways. I'm intrigued to see how that one pans out, especially in Louisville, but they're just not clicking at all. A lot of chat here. They've got some opinions on San Diego. Michael also shouting at Ben, get the patch in Pierman. Yeah.
But no, I mean, I think that Memphis-Lou City game is going to be fun because
I think so, yeah.
Lou City, predominant power. Memphis figuring out, you mentioned the form team. Josh Winder just got his move. He's going to be off and running to Benfica officially. That was weird. It got reported.
Record transfer, 7 figures, was reported by Fabrizio Romano to be, I believe, $1.2 million.
Yeah, and it got reported like a month and a half ago. And then Winder, when he was at the U20 World Cup, went on Football Americas with Hercules Gomez, and Hercules Gomez asked him a question about the Benfica move, and Winder said, yeah, we'll see. Like, he was very coy about it. And people were like, well, is it actually happening? And then like 2 days later, it's like, well, yeah, it happened.
Yeah.
The other one's San Antonio, El Paso.
Mm-hmm.
El Paso are fun. I like watching El Paso. I hate watching San Antonio, but they're so
Sorry,
good.
Harry.
No. You don't understand. I hate watching San Antonio because it's so negative and unfun while being really fun at the same time, and they're really good. But
it's really functional football.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
It's enjoyable
it's
because
winning
of how
football.
Functional it
if
is.
you're watching it and that's your team, to a degree, if you're winning those games, you don't really care that much about how good the football is.
The way to explain it is if you're a fan of the way Juan Guerra sees the game and how he wants to have this stylistic approach, you're going to hate San Antonio for every single second of the 90 minutes. El Paso are fun. They kind of just do stuff, and it works out every time. I think San Antonio El Paso is going to be a...
Bring back Max, says Harry. There we go. He started with such positivity, saying that you were better, but no. I think the other one that actually does intrigue me here slightly, it's going to be Tampa Bay, who, again, team in very good form out in the East. They're playing New Mexico. New Mexico getting their first game in the post-Zach Prince era. We still don't quite know who they're going to go for over there. We're going to have to see how they ultimately resolve that issue. But, yeah, that'll be interesting.
I'll be curious to see where New Mexico goes with the style of head coach. Not necessarily what the name is or who the person is, but what kind of manager they go with. Do they go with function? Do they go with style? Do they try and figure out how they want to play as a club? It's a club that has had a culture around their fans, but has lacked a culture on the pitch. There's been a lack of, like, coherent, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. I'd like to see them commit to a fun brand of football rather than a more functional negative style. I think they've got a chance to do that, but we'll see.
Yeah. Be nice in the chat, Rob. Be nice to Harry. But I think though, okay. So that's our little look at USL. We've also touched there on the fact that Josh Winder with the transfer news. Of course, there's other Rick in for NMU. It's Michael. It's not going to happen.
Some
It's
14-year-old
not going
tweeted that out.
to
Now it's getting
happen.
traction.
It's not
Calm
going to
down, guys.
happen. Okay, it's not going to happen. If it happens, you can clip this. Don't worry, it's fine. But it's not
Clip it
going
now,
to
guys.
happen.
Just clip it now. Just have
Just
it
in
on ready.
case. Okay. Rick to NMU, I need it, Thomas. Guys, it's okay. Just don't get your hopes up, okay? Just don't get your hopes up for it. How would that play in Phoenix if he did get it? They don't. I mean, Harry, you're right. They don't want him. They don't want him, so it's not going to happen. How would it play? I mean, no one here would care per se, because a
they'd
lot
be
of
happy.
the people who are like, yeah, I mean, it would really screw with their locker room over there. I mean, you have to consider that. You got Santi Murray, you got Greg Hurst over there. Are they guys who really want to be? Are they guys who really want to be playing for Rick Chance again this year?
New coach
Santi
gets
Murray in
hired.
particular. I mean,
They specifically bring in Rick as an assistant just to stare over Santi the entire form of the game.
Immediately Santi Murray announces leaving. But okay, yeah, that's enough New Mexico talk for one day. I've got to deal with the fact that I might have to be going over there to Albuquerque shortly. So let's not keep talking about that club in the yellow. Other football news from the US. You know what I'm going to say. How big do you think it is? Lionel Messi signing for Inter Miami. Do you think it's particularly... Yeah, just
pink.
Small. Yeah, pink. I know, we hinted at that one earlier. What do you think about that? What do you think in terms of... Because to me, I think a lot of people are heralding it as though it's going to be this huge game changer for MLS and the game in the US. And I fear that... Well, I think people are over-egging it in a lot of ways. I think the other thing to me there, and this is probably where the issue is, right, is that... And I say this in... kind of, I'm not going to say that the Apple TV deal is a bad deal for the league. I don't think that's true necessarily.
I like it.
I think they got a lot of money involved, and from MLS's perspective, sometimes the cash in hand is better than the potential down the line. Okay, but I think that when you sign a guy like Messi, you want to trot him out. You want to show off your stars, and here's what's happening: you're not going to be able to show him off easily on TV because all those games are on Apple TV. They're on a bespoke streaming service within that, okay? So they're ultimately being aired by... you've got to pay specifically to watch MLS. So it's a steep point initially to get people on board.
Yeah.
They're not just tuning in because it's on something else that they have that they already watch.
Yeah.
So I don't think you get that boost.
I
You're not going to get the... You're not going to get...
I think you do get a boost in terms of people going after the Apple Plus, but I get what you're in what you're saying. You don't.
Yeah. I think it's limited more. That's the thing more. It's more... People think it's revolutionary, and it's not going to be in that sense. The other one, then, is that you want to trot him out and have people see him in public. But you see now that the ticketing landscape in the US is so broken, right? That, no, and it's true. In most places around the world, you can't actively scalp in the way that they do here by doing these transactions. And Ticketmaster only is pushing these at this point.
I saw somebody tweet out when the move got announced, right? Like, Messi, I just went to Paris and saw Messi for $100. I'm not going to go pay 6 times that to watch him play in Red Bull Arena.
No.
Like, nobody is. And that's fine.
Harry, here's the thing. It's the international growth that Messi brings. How many people were subscribed to beIN Sports to watch Ligue 1? How many people? Genuinely. People who are obsessed with following Messi are going to watch Messi. They're not necessarily going to transition. I don't think the international growth is that huge. I also think that, again, and this is the problem, actually, overseas... Yes, you've got Apple TV, but are people necessarily going to sign up for that? They'd have been more likely when it's already on existing sports channels, right? I know that MLS used to be carried on Sky Sports in the UK.
What a wild decision. Who was watching MLS in Wales? Were you watching MLS in Wales?
No, but that's because the games were being played at 1 a.m. when there's also nothing else on, to be fair, to fill their programming slots. Right? But... you'd be able to, if you've probably got those channels already in other countries, and you're watching it that way. Whereas it's an investment. Mm-hmm. To me, the people overseas that are going to invest in it are going to be hardcore Messi fans who aren't going to develop into MLS fans. That's the key thing overseas now.
I think the bottom line that I've reached with the Messi stuff is it's not as big of a move as David Beckham to LA Galaxy.
I think that was a big one at the time, and that kind of launched it. In the same way that Pele launched the NASL at that point, in terms of just the sport more, but when it was in the NASL.
Beckham brought you not only his ability and his knowledge of the footballing universe, but also he was a household name everywhere. Not that Messi isn't, but like Beckham was a different breed. He could walk into Hollywood and get you anywhere you want. Messi could walk into Hollywood. He could do whatever he wanted, but there's not the same charisma that Beckham brought. It's not as big of a move as the Beckham move because Messi's not going to be this poster child that Beckham chose to be. Part of the Beckham move was that we're going to slap you everywhere and you're going to do a good job.
Beckham was a celebrity. Messi is a footballer.
Yeah, correct.
And people
That's what I'm saying.
adore him because he is by far probably... Well, he's in a 2-horse race in his generation for the best player. He's very plausibly one of the... Well, he's in the conversation of the best players of all time, right?
Like it's
non-debatable. There's a handful of players that you'd put in that list with him, and it's people like Pele, it's people like Maradona. It's not... And so that's the thing. It's a short-term boost. And that is the thing. How do you turn it into long-term growth, as Harry's saying? How do you turn it into long-term growth? And the answer is... At the moment, I've not heard anything of that. If people are only showing up to watch Messi, they're not going to just convert into...
So Messi doesn't give you, I think, any long-term growth in terms of you're going to get viewership increases. Messi gives you financial growth in terms of you bring him in.
These teams are already owned by billionaires.
Yes. But the viewership
they're paying
matters.
Pennies on this league.
You're going to get players, and the goal is that again, for every Messi, if there can be 2 Thiago Almadas in the league. You take that. If there can be 2 Hani Mukhtars in the league alongside 2 Thiago Almadas and 1 Messi in the league, that's fine. Right now we have 1 Thiago Almada who's a $40 million transfer away to a Big 5 league club, and he'll play. And he's playing well for Atlanta United. And I hate the World Cup winner thing because he didn't play in the tournament, but he is. You have a Hani Mukhtar who joined the league from I think it was Brøndby in Denmark, and has become a league MVP. The only guy I think to have 10 goals and like 5 assists in 3 straight USL seasons, or not USL, MLS seasons, right? So if you can get a Hani Mukhtar who's going to come in from a weird spot and be a star, or a Thiago Almada who was well-touted, or a Miguel Almiron for that matter as well, well-touted stars that come into the league, turn into $35 million exports and are stars in the league while also having a Messi as well, that's the exact model I think that you want. You want a guy who's going to bring in the star power, bring in the name recognition globally, because everybody now knows about Inter Miami across the world. Their Instagram followers went up 4.5 million overnight. That's what Messi gives you. He also gives you the recognition of every little kid out there that now sees MLS as this actual option. And we've seen the intelligence of where MLS has gone. This has been a zag for what they've been able to do recently. Gareth Bale was the same thing. But they go younger now. They've been getting these young 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old players that have resale value, that are good, talented, mostly South American assets, and they bring them in and they play well and they move them on. If you can have a Messi that gives you this global, international reach, which he does, he might not give you the long-term growth that you want out of international stuff, but he gives you the right now, right here, global span combined with young talent, young players, guys who missed out on Europe that still could play here, that you can turn into stars in your own league, that your own teams, that Nashville SC and that Charlotte can follow. That's, I think, the end goal, is that you need a healthy mix.
Here's the thing. All of that kind of mix, all of that kind of stuff only comes about with financial investment in your league. Which at this point, they're creeping towards maybe, but they've still got the big salary cap kind of stuff, all of those kind of things that... And I mean, people talk about, this is the thing I hate about it, when you get into this conversation about salary cap and people talk about, well, parity. Look at the Premier League. Do we want to be like that?
It does
suck. The salary cap's not the reason. The reason for that is because you end the season with this utter, like, rolling the dice in single elimination games to determine who your champion is.
That's
right.
fair.
That's the real reason why it's not the similar teams competing every year per se. It's because you end in the playoffs. And I think, and people will probably point to the league table and say, well, that's not necessarily true. But I guarantee you, if it was done just on the league table, you'd find that teams take it a lot more seriously. I mean, God, there was a time when people were trying to avoid the number 1 spot in the MLS things because they didn't want the week off, because that ruined people had a bad record when they took that week off.
Yeah, I brought it up in the midweek, and like I said, I do genuinely think that the salary cap helps with some of the parity, and it helps teams like Colorado Rapids are bad one year. They can
Shout out the NVR Rapids there.
They can sneak into 5th another year. They can go back to 13th another.
Our second favorite USL caliber team.
That's what parity does. That's what the salary cap does. It provides that kind of stuff where you can have a team go from 12th to 5th, and that happens at times in the Premier League, but not as consistently as it does in MLS. But you're right. At the upper levels, you get your Philadelphias, you get your LAFCs.
Here's the thing, though. Outside of if you're talking about 12th to 5th, that does happen.
Yeah,
that does happen in the Premier League. It's yeah. You're talking about that middling group. That middling group of teams.
You can't
point to flip around quite a bit.
Okay, you can't use this year as an example because Chelsea had an awful year and Spurs did as well.
And how many? All right, so let's go. I don't know.
Well, 15, 16 is the Leicester year.
Yeah, so here we go. What leagues are we taking now?
Leicester was the dumbest but also coolest thing this sport and maybe sports in general has ever seen. All right, so 17-18, City won the title. United finished second by 20 points back. That was the Mourinho year. And the year after, United fell to 6th. So Burnley finished 7th that year. Then they had
newly promoted football. Wolves finishing 7th in 2018.
Bankrolled. Owen, you can't use that.
Yeah, I know, but again, that's not a salary cap.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, I don't think that it's a detractor, and I think, but the bottom line, the parity is built off the playoffs. I agree with you on that, and I think that. Again, all you want to know about MLS is apparently Aguero spoke to the media today and said something along the lines of he texted Messi and said congratulations or whatever, then sent him a screenshot of the table. And it was Inter Miami dead last in MLS. And Messi responded with, yeah, we got to get to the playoffs in a sarcastic way. This is actually, I think it was Fabrizio who reported or somebody said that. Someone with actual merit basically said Messi understands the playoffs are dumb. The playoffs are dumb. MLS shouldn't have playoffs. USL shouldn't have playoffs. It's a merit-based system. Win your league, all that stuff. But the playoffs exist, and that's why it's America. And that's why it's weird. And it's kind of funny. I can't wait for Messi to have to go to Cincinnati.
Well, it's a shame. It's a shame he wasn't out there for the Cup game yesterday, where I'm sure he'd have gotten kicked to absolute pieces.
That was a handball.
Against Birmingham Legion, it should have been, actually, as well.
Such a bad
I will say I didn't think that Sergi Demianchuk had a particularly good game in that one overall.
I don't think you've ever thought he had anything good, to be fair. But I agree.
I feel like there were moments of just lacking control in that one. And I mean, look, these two, unfortunately, it is unfortunate. I think both the Pittsburgh and the Birmingham Legion games feel like they've been overshadowed to a degree by a couple of bad calls. And that's a shame. I mean, you've got two USL teams there that put a good front for the league in the Open Cup this year, and I think that they could have possibly gone further. I mean, Birmingham Legion went a huge amount away, especially one more bad redirect towards the own goal from Inter Miami, and possibly Legion could have been level there in front of 18,000 fans. But you know what? That's starting to draw us, I think, to a nice conclusion. I think we'll have to leave it there. But remember, of course, that you can... you see this scarf behind here? The nice scarf, yes? I
like that it's on a cactus.
It's currently on the cactus. It's actually a really cool one for the summer. I know this came up. It came up in the last show. I think it was Leah was suggesting, since it's such a nice lightweight material, you could actually take them out to games. It'd help you with the sweat, maybe.
Like it's like a towel?
Yeah, you could do. While repping your favorite podcast.
The Armada used to give out like a towel, like a scarf every game if you were like the first 500 people there, and they were because it's Florida and it's humid, and it's always hot in the summer. They're all like that thin material.
Mm-hmm.
Got like a billion of them. They're great.
Yeah, well, you can get your own one. Go to the PHNX locker at phnxlocker.com. You can find that there. You can find t-shirts. We got all kinds of things. Not just Rising, of course, but all of our other beats. We got a load of Suns t-shirts on there. D-backs. D-backs doing pretty well at the moment. You can go rep the D-backs. You've got the Suns with a new head coach. So
does PHNX Bets have merch?
That's a no. That's a no, Shake.
I've been trying for so long, man.
We need to get on that.
I've been trying for so long. People don't. It's something about they wouldn't buy a t-shirt with your face on it. Come on.
I don't know. Would you buy a t-shirt with Shane's face on it? Shane's about to interject now if you don't.
It'd be a lie if he said no.
Well, rumor has it that if Rising can somehow manage to win the league, Max is getting a tattoo that will also feature his cartoon face on it. So Hey,
That's
we'll have to see.
electric.
We'll have
Honestly,
to
that's
see.
electric.
Adman will get an Adman tattoo. But you remember, if you want to grab yourself one of those scarves, you want to grab a t-shirt, head on over to the PHNX Locker at phnxlocker.com. Right. That's about it from us here. Remember, you can catch the PHNX Rising pre-game show that'll air live, not live as recorded, on Arizona's Family Sports and Entertainment Network, Channel 44 over the air, and 13 on Cox. We got a one-on-one interview there with Rising's new midfielder, Panos Armenakas, which you're only going to find on that show. And of course, remember to tune in for the post-game show, where we'll probably have Jake Anderson joining for that one. He's going to be chilling up in the press box, so we'll yank him across, and he'll take part in that one. And we'll have to discuss then how that game goes against Oakland. But you know what? Until then, good night.